Roman Reigns defeated at WrestleMania. The bloodline is done, and Paul Heyman has gone down with the ship. And on the Raw after WrestleMania, Heyman is standing beside Roman, and he's visibly upset. And Roman says, "There's no need to be upset, Paul. We had a legendary run. Both of us, first ballot Hall of Fame. We smashed everyone, and we will be back on top." But Paul says, "Oh, I'm not upset about that. I'm just upset that it had to end like this." Roman gets dropped and beaten down by Bron Breakker. And Heyman looks down at his former tribal chief and says, "I'm not the wise man because I remember the past. I'm the wise man because I can see the future. And the future isn't with Roman Reigns, it's with Bron Breakker. And if you think he's the only one, you couldn't be any more wrong. This is no bloodline. This is a dangerous alliance." A massive statement. Paul Heyman has declared that Bron Breakker, much like a former client of his, is the next big thing. And with a post-WrestleMania draft taking place, it's SmackDown that will be the stage to prove it. And Breakker makes an immediate impact as well, decimating multiple opponents. But the criticism from one member of the roster is that Bron is yet to truly prove himself. And that man is Sami Zayn, who is very familiar with Paul Heyman. And Sami says, "You know, this is so typical of you, Paul. Always leeching off others, only attaching yourself to things that benefit you and only you. Well, if you think he's the next big thing, let's find out. I want to challenge your boy to a..." Breakker spears him out of his boots, and Sami rolls to ringside, and Breakker grabs the steel stairs, and then he grabs Sami Zayn, and he's about to powerbomb him when Jey Uso runs out looking for the save, but it's too late, and Breakker slams him onto the steel. And now Jey is face to face with Heyman, and he says, "I'm not surprised either, Paul. You're a rat just like your boy over there." And then Breakker advances towards Jey, but Paul halts him and says, "They're falling into our trap just like we want. Just like we planned." And Jey isn't having any of it, and he says, "You going to let him talk for you? You want to do this or not? Let's go next big thing, come on." You know what? Forget it. Heyman, you only attach yourself to things that benefit you. And Heyman replies, "Probably explains why I never attach myself to you or Sami then. It's alright, Bron. He's walking right into the trap, just like the rest will. We'll do this on our own time." It's a harsh barb from Heyman, and with Sami Zayn having to be helped from the arena, Jey is still unwavered, and he heads into the week after, still searching for the answer to his challenge to Bron. He wants to avenge Sami Zayn, who is now confirmed injured and not in attendance. But he gets the answer directly after an impressive singles win via a devastating spear. It almost cuts him in half. Breakker stands over Jey as Heyman arrives and says, "We accept your challenge, and you're going to feel the backlash of stepping up to the future." Challenge laid, challenge accepted. And when we arrive at Backlash, just before the match, as Paul is readying Bron Breakker, another man Paul is very familiar with enters the fray. Well, if it isn't the man of the moment, Bron Breakker. And of course, Mr. Heyman. Listen, congrats to you two on everything. The success, the meteoric rise, I see it. And I mean that sincerely. And I just wanted to extend an offer. Any advice you need, I'm here. I know Paul and I haven't seen eye to eye lately, but I'm all about second chances. He's helped my family in the past, and I guess you could say, I'm a bit of a Paul Heyman guy myself. And Heyman says, "We really appreciate that, Cody. But we don't really need your advice." He has an advocate for that. Actually, you know, it just struck me. You and Bron have a lot in common. Both second generation, lot of expectation at a young age. And Cody agrees and says, "Yeah, we are kind of the same. Rich family history, natural talent, big shoes to fill, but Bron, I just have one question. Are you ready? Because I sure as hell wasn't when I was your age, and I think Mr. Heyman is a kingmaker, I really do. Look at the track record. Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns. world champion pedigree. But to me, you look like you might be a little scared to wear the crown. But I guess we'll find out. Good luck, kid. Cody is always being very cordial, but also showing that he isn't messing around and that Bron Breakker could be on his radar. But could he be right? Is it too early for Bron? Will we find out a little bit more as we head to the ring for Bron's first real stern test? And Heyman stands proudly as his new client does battle with a man he shared his wisdom with through the bloodline. But it's blood that is shed in this one. Almost immediately, Bron busts Jay open with a stiff shot. He's a genuine brute, and under the guise of Heyman, he's even more vicious than usual. Jay, being a fighter that he is though, puts up a battle, and he lands a super kick directly on the jaw of Bron Breakker. And now he goes to the top, jumps off for a splash, but Breakker moves. There's no water in the pool for Jay, but there is a spear. And it almost cuts Jay in half again. But Paul isn't content with that either. He instructs Bron to finish it properly. Bron throws Jay to the outside, and he sets up the stairs again. He picks him up and plants him down on the steel, just like Sami Zayn. He rolls him in the ring, pins him, and completes his impressive PLE debut. And just when everyone thinks it's over, Paul Heyman wants Bron to finish Jay off for good. Bron goes to the outside, slides the stairs back in the ring, and he's gonna finish it. But before he can, surprisingly, it's Jay's brother Jimmy who comes out. Not even he wants to see his own flesh and blood go through all this. And he isn't a big fan of Paul Heyman either. Heyman quickly ushers Bron to get out of the ring, and he obeys. Jimmy stands up for his own blood, and Paul says calmly to Bron, "It's all the plan. They're falling into the trap perfectly. They're not going to see it coming. We'll get to him next. But we do this on our time, not theirs." Jay is escorted out of the building just like Sami, and he is out injured now as well. And it carries over into the next episode of SmackDown, where Paul Heyman continues to unfurl the plan. Because Jimmy demands a match with Bron Breakker, and he says, "Blood is thicker than water. And I'm not going to let some walrus-ass looking suit treat my family like this. We deal with our own things in our own way. And Heyman is as much to blame for the corruption of my family as anybody. You were pulling the strings, so now I pull the carpet out from under your ass. And I eliminate the latest Paul Heyman guy." Bron attacks again, this time before the match can even start. It was never gonna be a match. He's possessed, and he's being directed by the ultimate manipulator in Heyman. He slams Jimmy off the stairs, and then he picks them up. He throws them down onto his body. Now, he wants to throw Jimmy onto the steel like the rest. Zayn is back, but he's too late. Bron smashes Jimmy onto the stairs, and now Bron goes to meet Zayn on the top of the ramp, and it's on between those two now. Paul Heyman watches on from a distance as security finally splits them up, and it spills over into the next week where Zayn finally gets his proper chance to face Bron one-on-one. But Zayn is still clearly beaten up from the first attack, but he's gonna fight like everyone knows he can. He gives Bron his toughest match yet. He's all over him, and Heyman, for the first time, is feeling a little bit of pressure. He jumps on the apron to try and get involved, but Sami isn't having it. He runs at Heyman, causing him to panic and jump off the apron. But Breakker is poised. He runs at Sami looking for a spear, but he gets caught, and he launches him into the corner. Usually the precursor for the Haluva kick. And now Sami runs at Breakker, but he reverses it. He grabs Sami, powers him up, and drops him down. It's all over. Breakker wins again. Another big profile star is downed, and Paul Heyman is working his magic. Jay is taken out, Jimmy is taken out, and now Sami Zayn. And Paul Heyman is once again directing Breakker to inflict more damage. There's barely anyone left, no one to come to the aid of Sami Zayn either. They've all been taken out. Solo Sikoa, Bron Breakker on a collision path. And very quickly, SmackDown General Manager Nick Aldis comes out to make it official. But he also makes sure to separate them. These two will collide at Clash of Champions. But it's now being dubbed the Clash of Future Champions, because Aldis drops a bombshell and says the winner will get either Cody Rhodes or Drew McIntyre at SummerSlam, depending on who wins. And Heyman has to pull Bron Breakker away, but says, this is perfect. The trap is set, and they'll fall right into it at Clash of Champions. A huge match. Two men who are unquestionably the future of the industry. And they're about to fight it out to potentially become the here and now. The bell rings and the stare down in the ring is incredible. The tension is off the charts. But before they can even touch, the match gets blown apart. He's back, and incredibly, the crowd cheers. Reigns is now fighting it out with Bron, and he's getting his revenge. Breakker is able to get out of the ring though, and Heyman is looking extra smug. But why? Well, it's announced that Bron Breakker has won via disqualification. Bron is the new #1 contender. But that turns out to be the least of Roman Reigns' worries, because as he's screaming at Paul and Bron and saying, this is the next big thing, huh? This is the big bad Paul Heyman guy. And look at you, hiding behind him. And Paul says, it certainly is, sir. But as I said, he's not the only one. And you've fallen directly into my trap. They don't call me the wise man because I know my history. They call me the wise man because I can see the future. Solo was never your right-hand man. He was mine. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman, and you are all bearing witness to the future that has just become the here and now. Solo Sikoa, the man who was always touted as the next in line, is now the line. And this all began with Roman comforting me, so let me give some comfort to you, Mr. Reigns. It will all be over soon, my tribal chief. Solo will put down the big dog, and then you can go on a nice vacation. Hell, I know a great island you could go to. But I hear you all asking, where is Bron Breakker? Well, that's a great question. See for yourselves. Bron has gotten to Rhodes, and he's brutalizing him and talking all kinds of trash. You think I'm ready now, Cody? Huh? You think I'm ready to wear the crown now? I'm more ready than you ever were at my age. My head isn't up in the stars. This isn't going to be dashing. The future is now the reality. And Paul is once again very pleased and says, yes. What better way to get to the championship than running through the very family that held it hostage for so long, guided by the man who guided them on how to do it. It's poetry. It's a beautiful, shall I say, story. Bron Breakker is inevitable. Solo Sikoa is inevitable. And the future has become the here and the now. That's not a prediction. That's a spoiler. Heyman has two of the most dangerous and fastest rising talents in WWE, and they have two of the most established and biggest stars in the here and now in their sights. And to show their solidarity, Heyman teams them up and has them face multiple-time tag team champions in the New Day. And it's a real showcase of what Heyman has instilled in them. It's vicious, brutal offense that is very reminiscent of the old days of Extreme. And as Paul watches on very smug, he then gets a very rude shock. Reigns is here, and the crowd erupts again, and Heyman dips immediately. Solo sees Roman, and the brawl is on at ringside. They once fought together, now they're on opposite sides of the fence. But Roman isn't the only one who takes the chance. Cody runs down, and now he and Braun are going at it. It's completely flown off the handle. So much personal animosity mixed with trying to defend your territory. Rhodes knocks Breakker over the top rope. Roman knocks Solo over the top rope. And all of a sudden, two men who have been at war are now fighting the same one. Full circle moments, high tension and high emotion. It's all so unlikely, but it shows the growth on both sides. Cody gives Roman a second chance, just like he gave his fallen comrades in Jay, Jimmy, and Sammy. And we get one of the most unlikely scenarios on the eve of SummerSlam, when Cody teams with Roman Reigns. It's an unlikely alliance against the dangerous alliance, and it's a real taste of what's to come at the biggest party of the summer. And also, the first time we see Reigns really get his hands on Braun since the attack that started it all. But Cody also gets his hands on Solo, who cost him everything at WrestleMania Hollywood and turned his back on the family. But as expected, the ring simply won't contain this kind of rivalry. Braun and Roman battling on the outside. Solo and Cody are in the ring, and Solo is the legal man as well as Roman Reigns. And the referee is trying to get him back in the ring, but Breakker has him over near the stairs, which we know is big trouble. Solo manages to hit a Samoan spike on Cody though, and he rolls out of the ring in pain. Breakker is looking to finish Roman on the stairs like the rest, but Roman fights out. He spears Breakker, but it's too late. He's counted out. The Dangerous Alliance win the match. Reigns slides back in the ring to get at Solo, but Heyman instructs him to leave, and they all do. And as the dust settles on this fight, it's far from the end of the war, because now Paul Heyman is leading his guys into the biggest matches of their entire career at SummerSlam. The right-hand man of Paul Heyman versus his former leader in Roman Reigns. A complete turnaround after the demise of the Bloodline. Solo wants the chance to rid the WWE of the final member of his family in order to take his place at the top of the food chain. Roman is also the last man in line that Heyman wants to run through in his quest to bring gold back to his stable of stars. And Solo shows everyone why Paul Heyman handpicked him. He's all over Roman, and he's looking like he could potentially have gone past him. Roman was always the top dog, but it feels like it's way more even. It's a real coming-of-age performance from Solo, but Roman is Roman. He built this empire, and he's not gonna be torn down easily, and Paul knows it. At ringside, he's trying everything to try and distract Roman, but that draws out Jay, Jimmy, and Sammy, and they run off Heyman. But Roman sees them, and then sends them back, and he says, "No, I do this by myself now. We don't do it this way anymore. We make this right." But as all three walk off, Solo grabs Roman, looking for a Samoan spike, but he powers out of it. He hits him with a Superman punch, launches off, and nails him with a spear. 1, 2, 3. Roman does it the right way. He shows that he's turned it all around. Without Paul Heyman. Without the Bloodline. And importantly, he shows that perhaps Solo isn't quite ready to wear the crown. But we still need to find out where Braun Breakker is. And with Paul Heyman nowhere to be seen since being run off from ringside, it's one-on-one. And at the request of Cody, it's to stay that way. No matter what. He wants to test himself against the future. A man he himself questioned. And the questions get answered very quickly. Cody finds out swiftly that Braun is ready. He's as quick as a cat and as powerful as an ox. Rhodes struggles initially, but he warms into the battle. And Cody starts to show his experience. The one thing he definitely has over the younger Breakker. And it really sets them apart. Breakker is continuously rushing in and getting caught on the counter by Cody. Maybe Cody was right. Perhaps Breakker isn't ready to wear the crown, just like Cody wasn't at the same age. But there's one key difference. Cody didn't have a wise man. And like a snake, he slithers back onto the scene. Heyman comes back through the crowd and he thinks he's going undetected. But Cody uses his experience. He uses his wisdom. He listens to the people. He knows where Paul Heyman is and he clocks him with a right hand. But Bron was waiting. He runs at Cody for a spear, but he counters. He gets the cover. 1, 2, no! The tightest of 2.9s. Cody now knows he's got to do more. He goes to the top. He's going to look for a giant moonsault. He leaps off, but Bron Breakker moves. Cody lands flat on his face, and Breakker, like a shark smelling blood in the water, locks in the Steiner recliner. Cody writhing around in pain, screaming and squirming, but he starts to fade. The crowd is on their feet. They can sense they're witnessing something special, and they are. Cody fades out. The referee calls the match. Bron Breakker has completed his meteoric rise to the top, and he's ready to wear the crown. And just like Brock Lesnar of around 20 years ago, Bron Breakker becomes one of the youngest world champions in history. And the common theme is Mr. Heyman. And it shows that it pays to be a Paul Heyman guy.